Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Birmingham Bible Church Worldwide. From wherever you are, we just want to welcome you. This is our segment called Winning Wednesday, and every Wednesday at 12 noon, we like to bring you some information. Well, the first thing we like to do, of course, is to declare that you are a winner and that you have the victory over whatever situation you are in right now. Whatever circumstance that you find yourself in, you have the victory. And so today we have some valuable information because at Birmingham Bible Church, we not only want to give you the Word of God, but we also want to help you and I, of course, to live here on earth and how we can have life and just have life more abundantly. And so if you're on Facebook, we ask that you share this information, share it with your friends and your family. We are also on YouTube under BHAM BC, so make sure you subscribe to that as well. And we are under Twitter as well, James Mason 1. Well, in the month of May, there is another topic that we just cannot talk enough about. It just seems like every month has some kind of topic, some kind of national observance on stress. And so I can't, I can always tell you how stressful this year has been, but I'm sure you already know between the pandemic, between all of the personal stuff that we all go through, it's just everything has just been stressful. And stress is normal. It motivates us. It helps us to do well when we have meetings, when we have tests, when we're on the basketball court or football court, football field. But you can't have too much of a good thing. Normal stress can lead to chronic stress, and chronic stress, as you know, can lead to other health issues. It can lead to emotional issues. It can have you acting out of character. It can affect your relationships. I don't know if you all have seen this movie called Unhinged, but that is a classic example. It is a great movie. It's a good action movie if you like action, but it's a great scenario or an example of what can happen when you are overstressed. So it's important to manage our stress. And so on today, we have a professional talk about it. Y'all don't want to hear me talk about it. So we have a professional talk about it. Her name is Valerie Wilson. Her husband is our graphics guy. Of course, we've said that before, but he does all of our graphics at Birmingham Bible Church, Nicholas Wilson. But Valerie Wilson, his better half, is on today, and she has an agency called Refined Mental Health Wellness. And so she is going to cover all this information and possibly address a few questions at the end. So listen, guys, make sure you share this information with somebody that you know. And if you have any questions, please put them in the Facebook feed. So hello, Valerie, how are you?
Doing well, Sister Pam. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing good. Thank you for joining us on today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um,
So let's
can
talk
you hear
about
me
stress.
okay?
Oh, yes, I hear you great. You're fine.
Perfect, perfect.
Yes, ma'am. So go ahead and talk about this subject of stress.
Well, I think you did a great job. You said that others don't want you to talk about it. I think you were doing a great job. And like you were talking about, this past year has been really stressful. I was just, for some reason, my mind had started drifting away from some of the pandemic issues. We have settled into the norm of staying safe, still quarantining, those type of things, and that has just become our new norm. But I was just thinking back to a lot of the stress that our family faced with the loss of two uncles within a month's time. And then I was thinking about so many other families that have lost loved ones. And naturally, your body is going to respond to those type of stressors. And you're right, our body, it is good for our bodies to experience some normal level of stress. It helps us to address issues that, it helps with problem solving. It does help with testing. It helps with getting us from things that seem threatening to us. If there's an animal that is threatening to you, your body is naturally going to create some stress. And by way of the adrenaline, is the adrenal gland is going to produce a stress hormone called cortisol. And that cortisol is going to alert your body to produce some level of insulin to give you some, or inhibit the insulin, but also give you some level of glucose to help you get away. That glucose is going to go to some of the large muscles in your body to help you to get away from that particular threat. But the thing is we're not always faced with a threat. And that's the part that I'm most concerned about. When we worry over some of the smallest things in life, our body is still producing stress hormones, this cortisol. And if we're not using the glucose that is produced as a result of that, if we're not using that, then the body is going to eventually store that glucose, which may make it a little bit difficult for you to lose weight. And so sometimes we wonder, why is it so tough for me to lose weight? Or why am I struggling with headaches? Or why am I struggling with so many other issues? And it may be a result of this stress hormone that's been released in your body and some other activities that require you to use those hormones to get away from a threat. So whenever, think about those moments when you're in a near car accident. You remember, you recognize what happens for you. Your body you get startled. You're more alert. You probably even have some reaction at the wheel, trying to miss a car or, make a turn of some sort. In those moments, you're responding out of the adrenaline that has released the cortisol. The adrenal gland has released the cortisol for you to be able to do that. Think about those moments when your child is injured, in the urgency that prompts you to go see about your child, or even preparing for meetings. There's a level of stress that happens with that. Losses in your family when you lose loved ones, but overall, there's a fast pace lifestyle in the world. And I just growing up in the 80s, in the 90s, it wasn't as fast paced and demanding as I have seen it today. Everything seems to be revolving around money or how to make money and what's the next best thing to do. And there's very little time to say my body needs downtime. I had to particularly be very cautious of this because I was actually driving, made a habit out of driving and going to the next meeting, or driving and eating. And in those moments that I'm driving and eating, my focus was on scarfing the food down so that I can get to this meeting without even recognizing when I was actually satisfied or when I was full. And so that stress and of going to that meeting and not really trying to be and not being aware of what was going on for me, I think that just really got me into an unhealthy place. But yes, life does go on, and life is fast paced. Again, those are not the things that I'm concerned about. There was someone earlier this week that posted on Instagram, and she said, I actually pulled it up, and her question was, what's an all-time Black mama line that's burned in your head? And I thought that was a good question, because as I was looking at this, while we do have all of the normal activities of life, I also thought about how we, and particularly in the Black community, have been taught to navigate our feelings. And some of those messages have set up some habits within us. And I was just going down a list of things that I remember hearing. And you guys have fun with this. I like things to be interactive, but think about some of those lines that you heard from your parents or your mom. And I remember my mom would always say this. She's like, fix your face. Fix your face and shut up before I give you something to cry about. Children are to be seen and not heard. What happens in this house stays in this house. Don't go run into that school telling our business. And oftentimes, and I was just having this conversation with my mom the other day. It wasn't a pleasant one, but I was sharing with her a moment where I felt judged. And her thing is to overlook it, not to talk about it, never to talk about it. And that's concerning for me and what we're doing with our emotions if we're not free to talk about what are some of the things we're stressed with, then what are we doing with our feelings and emotions if we're not processing them? Can they really be brushed off, swept under the rug, or roll off your back? Nope. They're very likely stored, and we could in the medical field we call this internalization. So we think we have these terms or phrases that we use that I've just let it roll off my back. It's just going to go over my head, going to sweep it under the rug. We have those terms, but those things don't actually happen. We internalize that. And then when a similar event like that, whatever you've internalized, when a similar event happens, we are triggered to remember what happened before. And it's compiling on top of each other. Now, with all of those things internalized and not processed, I usually use my little heart canister to explain this. But if all these little candies on the inside are my thoughts and my feelings and they're never processed, I want you to imagine the weight of this heart compared to being able to process, right? So just think about this. The thoughts and feelings contained in here, if never processed, weighs the heart down. And that is supported by scripture, that the heart becomes heavy. Anxiety on the inside of our bodies become depression. And so that's how important, processing your thoughts and feelings are, because this is where your peace resides. right? And if you have all of this information that you haven't processed, then you've just given away your peace. You've given away all of your ability to rest in God's hand. He says, enter into the rest. And I think I've said this before. Do you permit yourself to come into that rest? Sometimes we're asking God, let me enter. But do we permit ourselves? He's given us the tools. He's given us the tools to do so. And this is why I do focus very much on communication, verbalizing what thoughts and feelings you're experiencing in my practice. Sometimes we're judging these thoughts, feelings, emotions as weakness. That's something that we have done in our community, is judged it as weakness. But I like to say you're pretty strong for being able to be aware of what's going on for you. I want you to think about what self-awareness is. Self-awareness is saying, I know what I value, I know what I think, want, feel, need, desire, all of those things. Self-awareness say that. Now, let's say that you can lock in on all of those things, you can name it, but you never honor it. If you never honor it, it's just like walking away from yourself or self-abandonment. And once you abandon all of those things, what you value, what you think, want, need, feel, or desire, just think about what that looks like for you to abandon yourself. Sometimes we wonder, how do we get to this place of feeling anxiety? I remember a time, and I don't know if I shared this example before. I remember back in high school, I would just go by McDonald's because I wanted some hot fries. And there were times that I would just get cold fries. And that was the only thing I would go to McDonald's for, because I love their fries. But if I got them cold, I would sit in the parking lot and contemplate on whether to take those fries back on the inside and ask for hot fries. But at that time, I could not work up the courage to do so. So I sat in the car and I ate those fries miserably. And so I just denied myself something that I desired. And the outcome of that is I felt miserable. But there are many examples like that we do. We tend to do these things in many different instances in life. And the moment that we deny ourselves to say what we think or what we feel, how we've been violated, how we might have been offended, the moment that we do that, from that, the desire doesn't go away. The desire is still there for you to say it. It's just that you've told yourself no. And as a result, you begin to experience disappointment or resentment, anxiety. And then it kind of goes from there. If you're doing that often, then it just goes to things, it becomes an anxiety disorder. The more you do that over a long-term period, that's how we begin to get disorders like anxiety disorder or depression or borderline personality disorder, those type of things. So I think the best thing that we can do for ourselves is truly honor what it is that we value, what we think, what we want, need, feel, or desire, because that's where peace and rest resides. To do anything other than that is self-abandonment and leads to depression. Here's what's going to happen in your body. So I want to go back up to stress hormones. When we continue to worry over, oh, I wish I could have taken the fries back into McDonald's. Why couldn't I do that? I was so disappointed with myself. Now we're beating ourselves up. It becomes a personal attack. And then we take other instances like that we didn't honor ourselves, and we worry over those things. I wish I could say this to that person. I wish I could confront that person, but I'm not, because I fear the reaction. I fear the loss of the relationship. Now we're responding out of fear. The desire to honor those things don't go away. You simply told yourself, no, but this is what happens in your body. As your body perceives stress, your adrenal glands make a releases that hormone cortisol into the bloodstream. And then overexposure of this cortisol when you're in that space of worrying and anxiety, that is when you can really get yourself into some trouble, being overly exposed to this particular hormone that's only designed to help you to get through tough situations, like when you're facing an exam, or when you're in situations where you're trying to miss a car, or when your child has gotten injured. Now your body is overly exposed, and that's where some of the medical issues like increased blood sugar levels, weight gain, suppressed immune system, digestive problems, and heart disease. That's where those things begin to show up. I was so afraid of, during my late teenage years, really afraid of expressing my emotions, for fear of repercussion or punishment, those type of things. And I actually developed migraines as a result, I believe, as a result of the stress that I was experiencing. Doctors kept trying to give me medication, 8 different types of medications, like, what's going to work for these migraines? And I began to understand that, and even more so when I had my last son, when both of us had developed a heart issue. When I was pregnant with my last son, and we had both developed this heart issue, and the doctors couldn't see what was going on or the cause of it, I began looking at what was going on around me. And there was an issue that triggered this anxiety, this stress on the inside of me. I didn't want to address it with the person, because typically they become defensive and very reactive. But what I focused on was communicating what was on my mind and in my heart, gently and respectfully. That's the only thing that I could give myself responsibility for. As I began to process those thoughts and feelings, 2 weeks later, I go to the doctor and they found nothing going on. Stress will generate different issues in your body. And I think that we can be so aware, we can increase our awareness to understand how it manifests in our body. And years ago, it's been about 20 years now, but as I worked through the emotional trauma from my childhood, I was able to navigate thoughts and feelings that I just internalized for all those years. And eventually I was relieved of those migraines. Haven't had a migraine in 20 years, over 20 years now. So it is so necessary that you're processing what's going on in your thoughts and with your feelings, because again, that is where your peace and your rest resides. Now, there's something happening in the mental health care field, and it's always been happening, and there are just stigmas surrounded around seeking mental health care. Particularly in the Black community, we tend not to seek out help. If we looked at statistics, I believe statistically, we are in the lower ranks of seeking out mental health care compared to other communities, like in the white community. Hispanic community is right there with us. There are just certain messages or certain stigmas around or in these communities that keep us from seeking out mental health care. And some of those stigmas are, if you're struggling in your emotions, if you're struggling in your thoughts and your feelings, especially when I was coming up in the church, it was attributed to a lack of faith and a lack of strength. It was always attributed to, being crazy or tarnishing the family. And then there are also, anxieties about what to expect and fears about being involuntarily hospitalized or not enough Black therapists represented. On that last point of Black therapists being underrepresented, that is one of the major issues. But more and more, we do have Black therapists being represented. I think the number is still below 10%, but there are Black therapists in. And I believe it was Taraj P. Henson who is doing a movement. She has a movement going on to bring together Black therapists to address, mental health in the Black community. I think this is why we're seeing a lot of it. We tend to perceive people in the Black community or others, like authority figures, perceive people in the Black community as being aggressive is one part of that, to a degree, might be true. We haven't learned to a great degree how to process our thoughts and feelings, but somehow anger has been more of the more acceptable emotion to exhibit. Aggression, sarcasm, those were some of the things in my own family that were permitted. If you were sarcastic, that showcased your strength. Or if you were aggressive or argumentative, those were things that were sometimes permissive, especially amongst the adults. Sitting down as a family, I thought, and for my husband and I, we believed that this was going to look different for our family. We were going to bring our family together to sit down and to have conversations about things that we struggle with. That and I talk to some of my peers, some of my colleagues who said they don't do family meetings. I felt like that's something that we've always needed, is family meetings, to be able to talk out some of the things that we struggle with, and to allow our children to navigate some of their feelings. There was no threat to, discipline. There was, this is your moment, express how you feel, and feel free to do that, giving them a sense of autonomy. So the problem I think, I'm talking about the Black community, I think the problem has been we've been discouraged or shunned from expressing our feelings or developing a sense of autonomy, particularly, again, in our community, and we feel comfortable with expressing we feel uncomfortable with expressing the things that we've become aware of, to the point that we abandon ourselves for fear of inconveniencing others. Again, loss of relationship, people's reactions, being judged, or feel undeserving of the kindness that we tend to extend to others. But I want you to think about how abandoning yourself manifest in you, how that leads to thoughts of resentfulness, disappointment, emptiness, depression, anxiety, anger. You feel uncared for, unsupported. And here's something that I did whenever I would have these feelings. It was almost like I desired for other people to just figure it out. If I can be thoughtful in regards to how someone else feels, why don't they just be thoughtful and figure out how I feel? But that was still fear. Fear was telling me that, well, if you show how resentful you are or how disappointed you are, maybe they can figure out what's going on with you without you having to say so. And then when the person don't figure out what's going on with me because I haven't said so, I have given the responsibility to them. And if they don't live up to my expectations, then I'm going to probably attack them. How can you not figure it out? Why aren't you thoughtful? So on and so forth. It's easier for me to attack them than to address what's going on the inside of me. It is easier to attack someone than to be vulnerable. And so when we abandon this, we begin to look for someone else to care for it. So now you're asking someone to care for you in a way that you won't care for yourself. So I always say that whenever we are aware of what's going on the inside of us, we bear the responsibility to do something with that. If we do nothing with it, we walk away from ourselves. And so it was me who should have, in certain situations, it was me who should have said, I feel upset, or I feel whatever it is that I'm feeling, whatever I become aware of. It was up to me to say, no, I won't be able to take on that particular task today because my schedule is full. Other people don't need to just try and read your mind regarding that. You know that you're exhausted and you have the responsibility of saying so. So, boundaries is going to be a part of how to manage your stress, setting boundaries, being able to say no, delegating tasks, asking for help, not overcommitting, not allowing yourself to be manipulated with guilt, speaking up when you feel uncomfortable, and establishing a healthy support system. So all of these things, there is more to setting boundaries, but those are a few examples. Another part of managing your stress, I think this has been important to me, is set aside some downtime daily. At least start with 30 minutes. Try and increase that to about an hour, that you get to rest, take a break from your daily schedule. Take yourself out to lunch without coworkers periodically. Enjoy the sight, smell, and taste of your food. And try to be more aware of when you're feeling satisfied instead of rushing off to different places and trying to eat at the same time. You're requiring so much of your body in that moment. Maybe sit quietly and meditate and fine tune your senses. Sometimes I like to go and sit at the park and just observe nature, and that's it. I'm not thinking about where I need to go or what I need to do. It is quiet time. Schedule a nap without guilt. That has helped me so much, because it used to be I would take a nap with guilt. I would always have this pressure to, like, I should be up doing something. But now I've moved into a space that's like, nope, I have been very productive today. Therefore, I'm going to take a nap. Also, go to bed at a decent time. On average, adults under 60 years old need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and it varies for different age groups. Drinking plenty of water is going to be something ideal. Now, one of the things that I was just thinking about this morning. I was sleeping so good last night. I was like, what did I do to sleep so well last night? One of the things is that I don't like my feet cold, so I put on the little electric blanket and covered my feet down at the bottom of the bed. And imagine that here in Arizona. But so I put some heat, and then I use this Calm app. It's called Calm, CALM. And it has some different meditation music on there, nature sounds and all of that. So I put that one last night, and I set the timer for about 30 minutes. And I drifted off to sleep and didn't even wake up to go to the bathroom. So that was a really good night for me. Take a soak in the tub with some quiet music. This one I love to do. I remember just this past week, I just stole away from the family and did my own little thing. I had my own little spa treatment, I did a pedicure, and I took a soak. It was really nice. Pick a hobby. I've actually gotten back to roller skating just to kind of stay active, but art, sports, crafts, projects, exercise, anything that you enjoy would be ideal. There is also, I talked to some parents about overstimulation for their children. I have parents who think that they have to occupy the child's time around the clock. And I said, actually, that could be really bad for them, because they'll go out into the world and they're constantly looking for stimulation. And when they're not being stimulated, they don't know what that space feels like, or how to exist in that space where they're not overstimulated. So a child being able to also get adjusted to doing some quiet time or relaxation time, like my son calls it. He's like, I'm in my relaxing moment. Now he'll go off to himself. That's his time and that's his space. We don't we don't engage with him, but that is just some downtime for him, and he'll let us know. He'll also let us know or put it on the calendar when he needs some quality time with his family. So getting your kids or other people in your home adjusted to when your downtime is ideal. Also, leave some cushion around schedule appointments and your work schedule as best you can. Whenever you have a doctor's appointment, plan to leave in time enough to arrive early. I try and arrive at my appointments 15 to 20 minutes early. At work, 15, 20 minutes early. And if possible at work, when your shift has ended, leave on time. Try to leave on time. And you're just setting up, you're setting up a framework for yourself where you're able to say, okay, I'm turning the switch off. I think I've mentioned this before. Whenever I get up in the morning, though I work from home, I try and get dressed for work. But as soon as I turn off the light switch, I'm going to go and put on some leisure clothes. And that tells my brain, you're off work. Because I could work all day. And I used to not, distinguish when is my work time and when is my leisure time. So distinguishing that will help you to reduce your stress as well. So if you want, you can talk about some of the things that you like to do. Those are some things that came to my mind. What are some of the things that you do to reduce your stress? Think about that. And then what I'd like for you to do is plan this week how you're going to implement that. Set the goal and work towards implementing that this week. And then after you have implemented that, I want you to think about what that experience was like for you. Sometimes we can get in that space and it feels a little bit uncomfortable at first, especially if we're in the busy phase of life where we rarely have an off switch. Sometimes it feels a little bit uncomfortable, just like I talked about during that nap time where I struggled with guilt, but eventually moved to a space where I can lie down without guilt. So these moments when you're trying to implement these new strategies, it's not going to feel very comfortable at first, even with meditation or taking time out to pray. That is another one that actually is number one on the list, taking the time to pray about situations that you cannot control. And then on top of that, only control the controllables. When something is out of your control, sometimes we can get into a haste trying to figure out all sorts of ideas about how to resolve that situation. I would encourage you to take that time to pray. Because the only thing that we're doing, and the scripture talks about, how much time can we really add to our lives whenever we are anxious over things? We can't add anything, but I can assure you that we can take away from our lives and our quality of life, right? Whenever we are anxious over things. So in all things, be prayerful, especially in those things that seem to be out of your control. So that's the gist of what I have today. There is so much to unpack here, but I do want to honor the time that Sister Pam has set aside for us and to be able to answer any questions.
This was so helpful, Valerie. I had a question. So, what do you suggest for people who, and you mentioned to communicate to others, when they're doing something that's, maybe inappropriate, something you don't like, to express how you feel. What can a person do to, let's say there's someone in their past who has maybe died, who's, they can't locate. How can they, still resolve their internal issues and move on and still be stress-free and live a peaceful life? How can they do that?
Yeah, I've actually had to work through that. One of the things that I did was write a therapeutic letter to that person. The person will never get the letter, and that's okay. But at least on paper, you have a place to dump those thoughts and those feelings. And then, even as you do that, write that therapeutic letter, get to a place where you can write a letter releasing them, um, uh, you know, in forgiveness,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes that first therapeutic letter might focus more on the hurt that you've experienced. And when we dwell on that hurt that we've experienced, we consider that particular experience to be all bad. And but I like what Paul talked about. He says, consider all trials and tribulations, count it joy. I believe it, or either it was in the book of James. Can't quite remember, but it says, count all of those things joy. And I didn't quite understand that because I thought, well, is he talking about in the moment? Because that's hard. But it may be on the other side of that moment that you realize that um, it actually gave you a gift. Traumatic experiences and tragedies, they don't feel good. And I can attest to that very strongly. But had I not experienced the domestic violence that existed in my home, and the result was that the kids were neglected and abandoned, if I had not experienced that, I don't know if my compassion for kids would be as great as it is, or my passion for kids in dysfunctional homes as uh, is as great as it is. So I believe that what I went through back then was actually a catalyst to where I am now and where I'm going. But I had to get to a place of saying, I know this hurt, but what is the gift that is given to me? Deeper compassion, um, a deeper desire to connect with people.
Yeah. No, that's good because you're right. Our past, and we've said this before, it really shapes us, and that's a powerful point because some of the things that I've gone through as a person, it helps me be a stronger person today. I think, I look back over my life and like, man, I was so weak and I was so timid and I was this and that because I grew up in an environment where, you're quiet, you don't speak out, you don't say what's on your mind. And so I have just a little bit of that. I mean, not all of it, but now because of life, because of things we've had to go through as a family, I'm a lot tougher, a lot stronger, and I think I can handle
Mhm,
things in a different light. And so you're right about that. I love what you said about control the controllable. A lot of times we do want to control other people, So a child isn't acting right, and we're just why ain't why ain't she or he do it? But at some point when they get a certain age, they're out the
mhm,
house, they have their own families. You can't control them. You can't control family members and people and our and
mhm,
our in our circle, and so you can't do that. And so that's one stress thing off your plate there. Just learning how to control the
mhm,
controllable. You said a lot of things. I like how you said how we don't need to deny ourselves how we feel, and just that example of that candy in the bowl, that was awesome because if you keep just piling stuff on, then it's going to your heart. You talked about how stress just affects us physically. A lot of
mhm.
illnesses that people have, even with the weight gain, I didn't think about that.
Absolutely.
But it all stems from stress. And so this was great, this was awesome.
Yeah.
I've been looking at the feed. I don't see any questions, but
Yeah.
we've got a lot of people on here commenting, just kind of about what you've been saying. And so this was great. Great
Yeah.
information. Thank you for this.
Another point that I wanted to make, and you actually brought it to my remembrance, is that whenever we are expressing what our values are, what we think, feel, want, need, or desire, sometimes there can be an expectation that people will respond accordingly, and they don't always do. Sometimes they will receive what you have said, and sometimes they will not. But the way I usually posture myself is, I am going to say this, and you can receive it. If you do, that's great for our relationship. But if you don't receive it, then I need to set up some boundaries between you and I, and that might require a bit of a distance. And unfortunately, I've had to do that with my own mother. That if you're going to continue to enter a space where you're toxic and hurtful, then I cannot continue to subject myself to that because of title as mom. And that's oftentimes what happens is parents can use a title as as their parents, as they are parents. Sometimes that's used as this sense of entitlement, right? There are some things that occur with me and my middle son, and right now we're working towards communicating more and us reestablishing our relationship. I make no demands for him to be in relationship with me because I'm his mother. He is a human being, and so I just want to let people know is not to have that expectation that all people will receive what you say just because you're speaking up. What you can control is the access that you have, or that they have, or well, that you have to them, or the closeness of a relationship. So just be careful about those expectations.
That's good. You're right. And establishing boundaries, it is so important, because, if you give people access to you, to your heart, to be able to speak and say whatever it is they want to say to you, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You're setting yourself up for, that stress. And so don't
Mhm.
give them that access. Like you said,
Right.
sometimes you may have to distance yourself, and it's sad,
Mhm.
like you said, it seems like family members are the one, if it's, one of your friends or something, you make it just be like, okay, well, whatever. But it's so much different when it's a family member, because we feel like we're
Absolutely.
tied by blood. And so we have to be together. Big Mama said we always got to be together. We got to always stay together. We're a family. But however,
Even if you're toxic, it's tough.
yeah, yeah. So, no, so this is wonderful. Thank you so much for this, Valerie. I'm just going to do a few quick announcements. I'm going to bring you back on at the end. Stay right there. Just a few announcements for our family. And then we're going to bring you back on just for a few closing remarks. So if we can hold tight 1 second. Okay. Well, everyone, just thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, this is the year 2021, and so we are reconstructing everything in our lives. And so we pray God is reconstructing you. So, of course, just remember that theme. As always, we are on YouTube, we are on Facebook, and we are on Twitter. So make sure you follow us through all of those social media outlets. And today, you just heard from Miss Valerie Wilson talking about stress management. Such a great and awesome job on what she did. Please continue to stay tuned. In a few minutes, you're going to know how you can reach her for even personal consultations. Next week, we have Miss Larissa, who's been with us before. She's going to help us talk about the benefits of a Mediterranean diet and how that can really benefit us health-wise. Tomorrow, we have one of our BBC virtual hangouts. We have our small group, Life Healing Choices. Very powerful small group that we have. If you are suffering from any habits, any hangups, anything that's bothering you from the past, like Miss Valerie has said, this is a great safe place that you can do it in. We have a big joint section, and then we break off into small groups. So this is a great way for you to talk about some of those things. But that's tomorrow at 7 o'clock p.m. If you desire to join in and you're new to this, please email myself at ladypam@tcowi.org. And then this Saturday, we are honoring all of our graduates with Miss Katrina Brown. She's going to be giving us some great words on how to elevate to the next level, as many of you have already done. But that's this Saturday at 11 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. We will be showing it on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. And then the end of this month on Saturday, May the 28th, we are having a time of fun to try to break the stress level between our spouses. And so we're having something called Battle of the Sexes. So please make sure you register for that. That is going to be a private event, so it's not going to be shown on social media. So if you want to do that, you want to join that, you can also email me at ladypam@tcowi.org. Don't forget our drive-up services are every first Sunday of the month in the parking lot of the MLK Center. The address is 529 43rd Street North here in Birmingham, Alabama. And then on June the 13th, Sunday, we are actually having our virtual business expo that's going to be held online. And so, of course, if you want to participate in that, please let me know. It's a great way that you can showcase your business. And we are so excited about the things that we have going on. Of course, in the month of June, we have our Men's Awareness Summit with some of the greatest who are really going to inspire our men to be better. As you can see on the flyer there, it's going to be Saturday, June the 19th at 10 a.m. And then we are having a virtual ladies pajama party that's going to be June the 25th at 7 o'clock p.m. So excited about that information as well. The theme is hair care is our self-care. And so we are going to have some fun with that, ladies, as a private event as well. So make sure you email me, ladypam@tcowi.org. And then on Sunday, every Sunday of this month and going forth until the Lord says otherwise, Pastor Mason is doing a series on the church that Jesus built. Very powerful series that's going forth as every Sunday at 11 o'clock a.m. And then we have our prayer room call that's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 a.m. That number is 515-604-9324. And just want to thank you guys so much for those of you who always give towards our sponsored children in Haiti. We have 11 now. The last one that we did was that we sponsored was Boris. So thank you so much for that, because it is because of your donations that we are able to make sure they are supplied with food, with medical supplies, with counseling, with making sure their physical growth and their educational and emotional needs are making sure that they are being handled. So much, thank you so much for that. So Miss Valerie, thank you so much for all of this great information. Of course, Valerie has her own practice. And so Valerie, can you tell us a little bit about your practice and how people can contact you? I tell you, when you're
Yeah.
here on this thing, I just feel like I'm in a session myself.
Well, that's awesome. I hope that you've gotten some different tools, different strategies that you could use, and that's my hope for everyone. I know that sometimes that it can feel a little bit anxiety filled to start establishing boundaries or to even talk about what your thoughts, your feelings are. That was a very anxiety filled for me as well. And so, like I said, I just started with something as small as the McDonald's fries, something that didn't require a whole lot of me at the time. And then I kind of worked my way up my own personal hierarchy, which public speaking it was at its highest. So doing something like this years ago would have terrified me. So start somewhere small, work your way up, build up your endurance, be strong, be courageous, do not fear in doing these things for yourself, because I believe wholeheartedly that the Lord desires for us to take really good care of ourselves, because he loves us. He loves us first, and he's given us the strategies and techniques that we need. I believe he gave us that even from our youth, and somewhere along the way when life happened, we lost touch of it. So I think these are things that are built on the inside of us. So my practice is named, of course, like Sister Pam has said, Refined Mental Health and Wellness. My goal is to help people to overcome different life struggles and obstacles in life, and how to refine themselves, their thought processes. And that might mean, looking at how we're looking at certain situations that have occurred in our lives. I can be reached at 480-455-7742, or you can reach me by email at Valerie LPC, and that is spelled VALERIE LPC at refined mindshealth.com.
Good. All right, we're going to put that in the chat room once the broadcast is over. Well, listen, everybody, it is okay to have Jesus and a therapist. It is really okay. Like Valerie said earlier, a lot of times we were just so conditioned to, oh, we just need to pray about it, or, your faith is weak, you need to be stronger. No, sometimes you need to talk these things out. Sometimes we've been so subject to things in our past, like Valerie said, they just kind of lie dormant, and then they kind of raise this ugly head as we continue to be adults in life. And so please reach out to Valerie. She is awesome, awesome, awesome. Everything is confidential with her. And so you can contact her. So thank you so much for this session, Valerie. Thank you for the homework
You're
that we
welcome.
need to find something that we like to do and then implement it. And then we need to write down
Hmm.
how we felt about it. So thank you for that. I know my thing is walking. I love
Absolutely.
to walk outside, and it's been a beautiful week here in Birmingham. So that's my thing. I like to walk. And so thank you so much for that.
Hmm.
Thank you everyone for joining us and watching us live. Please, again, share this broadcast with others. Everyone needs to hear this information. So thank you so much, Val, for this. We appreciate you and
Thank
love you.
you.
Thank you.
Love you guys too. Take good care.
Yes, yes, ma'am. You too. Have a great week.